Have you ever had a friend bring you one of these little snow globes back from someplace? You know, when I was a kid, it was always cool. I like the ones from like amusement parks or something, like Disney World. Somebody'd go to Disney World and they would bring you back one, and you'd shake this thing up, and then you just watch the snow as it would fall on your friend's favorite ride, because they're the ones that got it for you. And you didn't get to go and participate in it necessarily, but you could shake it up and you could say, wow, I wish I could have done that. And so, as you get older, you go on trips. And, like this one, my wife went to Germany, and she brought this back to her kiddos. And so, they got to shake it up, and they got to look at it, and wow, Germany's neat. And but they didn't get to go to Germany at all, And then as you get older, you go to Branson, and then you bring them back to your grandkids, and they shake them up, and they were like, wow, the Presleys. And have y'all seen that show? And I have. It's kind of dorky, but anyway. But you look into these little snow globes, and you think, wow, from the outside looking in, that's a neat place. And that's a place that I would like to go. And you almost fantasize, like if I went there, if I was in that place, this is what I would do, or this is where I would go, or this is how it would be for me. And so there's a scripture in the Word of God this morning in Matthew that is kind of like one of those scriptures for me, because in Matthew chapter 8, it talks about a man that has leprosy. And for some reason, if you have like a top 10 favorite scriptures of all times, this would be in my top 10 scriptures of all times to talk about. And one reason why is because it gives a small word about what this guy is, or what he's going through, but it doesn't tell you the full story. And so if you know me at all, I like stories, and I like to tell stories, and it tells you enough about this guy to know kind of about his life, but it leaves the rest of it up for interpretation. So you can kind of like shake up the snow globe and look inside, and you can kind of just for yourself decide what his life really looked like. So let's start with the scripture part. Matthew chapter 8. It says, when he came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him, and a man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean. And Jesus reached out his hand, and he touched the man. And I am willing, he said, be clean. And immediately he was cured of the leprosy. And then Jesus said to him, see that you don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them. So we know this man is somewhere outside the city on the mountainside. Jesus has been teaching. He's been doing all those things that we know that Jesus did while he was here on the earth. And a man with leprosy comes out of the crowd somewhere, out of the mountainside, and he asks Jesus if he will touch him and, ultimately make him whole. Now, if you study about this man or about this man's disease, you're going to know that leprosy is one of those things in Bible times that's not necessarily curable. It's one of those things that is very contagious. It's one of those things that your flesh begins to deteriorate rapidly. You can lose fingers or hands or feet because of it. It's not a pretty sight. The flesh actually will begin to rot and smell. And so they don't want those people that have leprosy inside of the city for many, many reasons. And so if one happens to contract it, they're going to ask them, after they go to the high priest and after they look at him, they're going to say to him, you have to go outside of the city walls. So this man hasn't been inside in a long time of those city walls. And so if you leave it up to our imagination, it could go something like this. For many years, this man sat outside the city walls looking in. What was inside those city walls were important to him, because that's where all his friends were. That's where his job used to be. That's where his family was, and the home that he would sleep in every night, it was inside of those city walls. And so no longer could this man that had leprosy on his body, could he go home at night and tuck in his own children. This man is one of those men that when his wife would leave during the day, or he'd leave in the morning, his wife would kiss him goodbye and tell him to have a good day. You know, one of those beaver cleaver type moments, if you will. But he was on the outside of the city, and his family was on the inside of the city. And so it was one of those things that all he could do is look from the outside in and remember about how good he used to have it and how it used to be and what it was. He would fantasize about the world that was or could have been, but not anymore, because he's been cast outside of the city. He cannot participate. He cannot do the things. You've heard the sermons. You've read the commentaries where if a man with leprosy comes close, they would have to scream, "I'm unclean, I'm unclean," and people would walk around them. This man just longed for somebody just to touch him. Just a brush in a crowd would have been enough. But it's been so long since there's been any contact, any closeness, any intimacy whatsoever. So when Jesus is coming from the mountainside and he's on the outside of this city, and he comes before Jesus and he asks him, will you make me clean? It's not about just himself. This isn't just one of those things that I want to feel better, or it'd be great if you could, or by the way, on your way by, if you don't mind. This man knows that he's been on the outside for way too long. This man knows and craves and desires this inside world that he sees from the top of that mountain that they're by. As he watches the light switch in his house turn off at night, as he watches his kids play in the backyard, but yet he can't go down there and participate in it. This isn't just another moment for this guy. This is everything for him. And he knows that if he wants to be on the inside, that he has to do it through this man, this guy named Jesus. And so as he's walking by, he stops him and says, as he worships, "Will you make me clean?" Are you willing, God, to make me clean? Jesus, if you would just touch me, if you would just, I know. You're not supposed to. It wouldn't be beneficial to you to do that. But if you would, and maybe for years, it's the first time that anybody has reached his hand out to this man and touched him and said, I'm willing to take the chance. I'm willing today to lay my hands on you and make you whole and complete again. I know what it means to you for you to be whole again. For you not to have to look from the outside anymore, but you can actually go to the inside. And that's what he tells him to do. Don't stay out here anymore. I've made you whole. I'm willing to do that. Now I want you to go, and I don't want you to go tell everybody what I've done just yet. It's important because there's a process that you have to go through. You have to go back to the priest, the one that told you had to leave this place and you had to look from the outside. You have to go back to him and you've got to show him. Once again, my mind just starts to run as he begins to run back into the city, into the place that he dwelt and he loved, and the place that he wanted to be, and the place that he'd longed to be for so long. And he runs, and as he flies by people, they see him, and they're like, what is he doing? Why is he running through the streets? And they all of a sudden, they say, wasn't that our neighbor? Hadn't he been outside the city for a long time? Isn't he the one that has leprosy? Is he supposed to be? But he's running through the streets, and he doesn't look the same that there's something changed about him. And people begin to follow him, and people kind of get in line with him as he's going by, and they're saying, what's going on? And he says, I met this guy named Jesus from the mountainside, and I tell you what, I asked him if he would touch me and make me clean, and he didn't hesitate. I mean, he just reached out when nobody else would. I asked people to come by and to see me and to visit me and be around me or just talk to me from a distance because I longed for that. But nobody really would do that. But this guy named Jesus, I had heard about him for so long. He really did it. He touched me. He was willing to do it. And I don't have any of the pain anymore. I don't have any of the sores. It was like in an instant that it was all gone. You remember what I looked like when I left this place. I had hid it so long underneath my sleeves, and I tried to hide it from my wife, and I wouldn't tell my kids about it at all because I waited as long as I could before I had to be on the outside. But not anymore. Not anymore. As soon as I see this priest and as soon as he gives me clearance, I'm going home. I'm going back to what I knew. And he goes to the priest and he says, oh, it's you again. He says, yeah, it's me. He says, what do you want? I thought I told you to go outside of the city. You're not supposed to be here. I can imagine him telling the priest, have you met a guy named Jesus? And the priest says, yeah, I've heard of him. I met him a while ago. I met him outside the city. And when I met him out there, he touched me and he healed me completely. What did you say his name was? His name was Jesus. You knew he was coming through the city. You knew he was coming this direction. And when I heard that he was coming, I went to him and he changed it all for me. And he said, I guess he did. Because I don't see anything on you. Roll up your sleeves one more time. Let me see that. I want to make sure. And he looks at him, and there's no leprosy on his body. And he says, I guess you can go home. Now, before I move on, I just want you to get this. This man runs from that place. Because he's going back to the inside, the place where his children are, the place where his wife is, the place that he loves to be, the place that he has dreamed about all his life. No longer does he have to look from a distance and just say, if I could be in that place, that would be wonderful. But he's going himself to the place that he's dreamed about for so long. And so as he as he makes it down the road where he lives, on that block at the end of the cul-de-sac, as he's running as fast as he can, he sees his kids in the yard, and they look up. And they see the dad that they hadn't seen in a long time. And they take off running, and they jump into his arms, and I just, in my imagination, go ahead, say it. I don't read any of this. Where in the world did you find this in this book? Now, it just gives us a little part of chapter 8 there, the man with leprosy. But this guy was real. It wasn't just a man with leprosy. This guy lived a life. I just imagine him grabbing hold of arms and spinning his little girl around that he hadn't seen, and then grabbing her and running and opening up the door and saying, "I'm home." And his wife, with her back to the door, thought, that sounded like him. I know there have been many nights that I thought I heard his voice, and it's been so long since I have. Could I be imagining that again? And he says, "Honey, I'm home." And she turns and she sees, and it's real. No longer is he on the outside, but he's on the inside. And the embrace that they both longed and desired took place. I want to tell you, our lives sometimes are a lot like this man that has leprosy. A lot of times we live our lives on the outside. And we long to be closer. We long to be on the inside. But there's a lot of things that keep us from getting there. And there's a lot of things in our lives that guard us from that place. I want to tell you this morning that Jesus wants to be closer to you now than ever before. And so it doesn't matter what part of the relationship that you're at or what level, because he desires to go even a step further with you than where you're setting with him right now. And there's always things, whether it's the drastic things in our lives or it's the little things in our lives, that separate us from God. You know? And so with him, it's one of those things that a lot of times we sit on the outside of the city and we look in and we say, "Wow, God, you do all of this for all of these people. I wish I had that. It's so amazing how that, God, you bless those people. How that you give them everything that they need, and you give them, it seems like, even their desires and all their wants. And God, why can't I be like those people?" And you say, "God, you know, I am this and that and whatever we are." And you say, "You did it for those people, God. But you've never done that for me." And from the outside looking in, we just think, I don't know if that's even obtainable. I don't know that I could ever be like that. I don't know that my personality, I don't know that my lifestyle, I don't know that the places I go, the friends that I don't know that it allows me the opportunity to really be on the inside. Until we come to that point where on the outside of the city, when we don't have everything that we want or everything that we desire, on the outside of the city, we come to the point with Jesus where we say, "God, are you willing? Are you willing, God? And it's the same scenario, but you put your place in that story. You're in that story. You can put your name there. Are you willing, God, to change the things inside of me that I'm not able to change? Are you able, God? Are you willing to do those things? And every time, not occasionally, not one time, not two times, every time, God is willing, because He sent His Son to be there for you at that moment, at that time. He says, I'm willing. I've just been waiting outside the city for you. I've been longing to be here with you. And you know, depending upon what part of the relationship that you're in with God, you know what that touch feels like. You know it. Because you felt it before. When you needed it more than anything, when you desired it, or when you were in the middle of a disaster, or when somebody told you tremendously bad news and you ran to Him, or you were just sitting at your desk and you just started singing a song. And Jesus is right there to touch you. Whatever it is that you need. He says, I am willing right now more than ever to touch you. And the thing is, once He does, you get to write the rest of the story. You don't have to dream about it anymore. You don't have to fantasize about it anymore. You get to live the story out. Day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. You get to live it out. But living on the outside isn't fun. Living on the outside is not the best place to be. And maybe you feel like that's where you've been, or that's where you've had to be. But this is just one of those Sunday mornings that I think we come here and we sit together, and God's trying to tell us that whatever it is that makes you feel that way, it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Don't let somebody else keep you from getting on the inside. Well, I was talking to them and they said this, and so now it's not very good, and I'm not sure. And God's speaking to somebody today, and I don't know who it is exactly. But for you today, the word is, don't let somebody else keep you from getting to the inside. Because there'll be people standing at the gate saying, you're unclean, you shouldn't come in here, this city's not for you anymore, it's changed, we're better off without you, your family's moved on, don't come inside the city again, don't come in here, don't come in here. And God's saying today to you, this is the only place for you. This is the only place. I'll touch you. I'll restore. I'll deliver. I'll heal. Whatever it is, when you shake it all up and you look from the outside in, whatever the inside looks like for you, God says, I can do that for you. I can do it for you. And this is the funniest thing. All the guy with leprosy had to do was ask. There was guys with leprosy all over the outside. There were guys outside the city with leprosy that had the same story as the man in chapter 8. And those guys with leprosy from chapter 8 that did not ask, they still sat on a hillside on the outside of the city looking in. And today, if you don't ask Jesus to move you further or to help you through or to position you in such a way, then today it's just like you receiving another snow globe. Wow. I guess you've been there, but I haven't. Did you get that this morning? I can tell you what Jesus will do. I can tell you how He'll be in your life. I can explain that. I can read the scriptures. But unless you come back into the city, it's just you on the hillside by yourself. This is one of those Sunday mornings for you. This is one of those days. For some, this is one of those mornings that you will leave this place and you will say, I remember when I asked Jesus to touch me, and He did. And no longer did I have to look from the outside and hope and wish my life would be different. It is. It's just different. So what do you need today? I need healing in my body. God, I pray to you today that you would touch me. Because from the outside looking in, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look wonderful. Doesn't look like I dreamed it would look. But if you touch my life, God, then that whole story changes. It's whole, it's complete. It's different than what it is now. So what do you need? What do you need today? And I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know to have, if I need to have you stand and to come forward, or if I need to pray for you where you sit. I don't know. I don't know what would be more effective this morning. You know, if you grabbed a hand of the person next to you and you prayed that way, or I don't know. There's a lot of tactics that we can try to use to try to draw emotions or to try to get you to... But what it boils down to is this. If you do not ask Jesus, it's just not going to happen no matter which way we choose to end this service today. If you're having problems in your family, I want you to allow God today to touch you and it to be different. Don't let it be embarrassing to you. Don't let that keep you outside the city. If you're having problems with an addiction, and that happens. I have people all the time call me up and they tell me, Chad, this is how it happened. I don't know. But if that's you this morning, don't let it keep you outside the city. Let it happen so that Jesus can touch you and you can come back to the place where you need to be with Him so that you can enjoy life again. If you're here today and you are sick and you have given up on God, and you sit from the hillside and you say, I have watched people be healed. I have watched from a distance and I have seen people be delivered. I have watched. Don't let the enemy today tell you that God will not do the same thing for you, because He will. If you've been hurt today by somebody else, and they've kept you from God, change your attitude. Change your focus of worship. Jesus is sitting there and He's just saying, if you'll ask, I will change your heart. I will change the desires of your heart. And I will heal you from the wounds caused by men. Let me just tell you today, Jesus did not hurt you. And this church didn't hurt you. Maybe somebody, maybe an individual did. And I'm sorry for that. But Jesus didn't do it, because He runs after you and He longs for you today. So here, you get to do it any way you want to. If you want to grab hold of a hand, you grab hold of a hand. If you want to stand up right in the middle of the crowd and you just say, that's me today, I'm the one. God, you just, if you're willing, I'm willing. Maybe you need to come today, and maybe you need to kneel, and we'll make this stage an altar, and you need somebody to pray with you, and that's what I live for today, is to be able just to somehow agree with you that God's doing something amazing in your life. Then I want you to come. And if your personality is one that you just need to set, you just set, but God's going to find you some way. Somebody's going to come and lay their hands on you or grab a hand or something. So let's just let God move however He desires to move today.